The twin sons of Krell, 9 were dying, and so were we. My name is Vorath. I'm what you might call a collector of rare specimens, though the Galactic Council prefers the term xenobiologist. On that particular day, frozen half to death on a backwater moon nobody cared about, I was mostly just trying not to become a specimen myself. Remind me again why we took this contract? Kelra wheezed beside me, her 4 arms wrapped around her torso for warmth. Because you said, and I quote, "Easy money, Vorath." What could go wrong? I shot back, my breath forming clouds in the brutal air. She glared at me with all 3 of her eyes. I hate when you remember things accurately. We'd been tracking the dragons for 6 solar cycles. Not the cute, mythological kind. No, these were Skullrothi war beasts, 10 meters of muscle, scales, and enough bioelectric charge to power a small city. The merchant lords wanted them for their private collection. We wanted the 2 million credits they'd offered. What we hadn't planned on was the dragons being chained. When we finally found them, half buried in a snowdrift at the base of a cliff, I thought they were dead. 2 magnificent creatures, their crimson scales dulled by frost, massive chains wrapped around their necks and torsos. The chains weren't ours. They weren't anyone's that I recognized, actually. The metal was strange, primitive almost, but strong enough to hold beings that could level mountains. Who chains dragons? Kelra whispered, her voice trembling. Not from cold this time. Someone very brave or very stupid, I muttered, approaching carefully. My scanner flickered to life, and my heart sank. They're still alive. Barely. Core temperature is dropping fast. The larger dragons I cracked open, a sliver of gold in a sea of white. It looked at me, and I swear on my ancestors, it looked sad. Defeated. Ready to die. We can't move them, Kelra said, stating the obvious. Even if we could break those chains, which we can't, the shuttle isn't big enough. She was right. We were stuck on a moon with no backup, no supplies beyond another day's worth, and 2 dying dragons we couldn't save. The smart move was to leave. Report back. Cut our losses. But I've never been particularly smart. Help me clear the snow around them, I said, already moving. If we can insulate them from the ground, buy them a few more hours, maybe. Maybe what, Vorath? Maybe they'll magically heal? Maybe someone will swoop in and save us all. The wind picked up, howling across the frozen wasteland. I was about to respond when the larger dragon made a sound. Not a roar. Something else. Something that rattled in its chest like a broken engine trying to turn over. Then the smaller one joined in. Together, their voices created a harmony that cut through the storm, through the ice, through my very bones. They're calling for help, Kelra breathed. Nothing's coming, I said quietly. Not out here. Not in time. We worked anyway, scraping away snow with our inadequate gloves, trying to create some kind of shelter. It was pointless, and we both knew it. But what else could we do? Leave them to freeze? We weren't monsters. The storm grew worse. Visibility dropped to almost nothing. My communicator was useless in this weather, and our shuttle was 2 kilometers away. We were going to die out here with these beasts, I realized. Frozen solid, all 4 of us, a monument to terrible decision-making. That's when Kelra grabbed my arm. Vorath, she hissed, pointing into the white void. Something's moving. I squinted against the snow. She was right. A shape, dark against the endless pale, getting closer. Too small to be another dragon. Too steady to be an animal fleeing the storm. It was walking upright. Scavengers, I guessed, though I didn't know of any species that could survive these temperatures without proper gear. The figure kept coming, and as it got closer, my blood turned colder than the air around us. It was bipedal, roughly 2 meters tall, covered head to toe in some kind of primitive thermal clothing, furs and fabrics layered thick. Is that? Kelra's voice was barely audible. Is that a human? Impossible. Humans were restricted species. Category 7. They weren't supposed to be anywhere near this sector, let alone this frozen waste of a moon. But there it was, walking through a storm that should have killed it, heading straight toward us and the dying dragons. It stopped a few meters away, and I could see its face now. Pale skin, reddened by cold. Eyes the color of Earth's oceans, sharp and assessing. It looked at us, then at the dragons, then back at us. When it spoke, its voice was rough, like gravel grinding together. Well, it said in perfect, if accented, galactic common. You all look like you're having a terrible day. I couldn't speak. Kelra made a sound like a deflating balloon. The human walked past us, completely ignoring the two-armed aliens, and placed a gloved hand on the larger dragon's snout. The beast's eye opened again, focusing on this tiny creature with an intensity that made my scales itch. I know, the human murmured, and I realized with a start it was speaking to the dragon like it could understand. But you're not dying today. Neither of you. I didn't walk all this way just to watch that happen. The human turned to face us and smiled. It was not a comforting smile. Here's what's going to happen, it said calmly, as snow swirled around us and death breathed down our necks. You're going to help me free these two. Then we're all going to get off this frozen rock together. Questions. I had about 1,000 questions. But looking into those cold, determined eyes, I only managed one. Who are you? The human's smile widened. Someone who really hates chains. The human moved with purpose that bordered on reckless. Tools, it said, not asked, holding out one hand while the other remained on the dragon's scales. Plasma cutter if you have one. Molecular saw. Anything that generates serious heat. Kelra fumbled with her pack, pulling out our standard kit. We have a plasma torch, but those chains, they're reinforced with something we don't recognize. We already tried. You tried wrong, the human said flatly, taking the torch and examining it like it was a child's toy. These chains are Terran steel. Old Earth military grade. Pre-expansion era. My mind reeled. That's impossible. How would Terran chains end up out here? Humans have been banned from this sector for 2 centuries. The human didn't look up, already adjusting the torch settings to levels that made the device scream in protest. Banned doesn't mean gone. Just means we got better at not being seen. It pressed the torch to the first chain link. The metal resisted, then began to glow. But instead of simply cutting, the human did something strange. It whispered to the dragon, low and steady, words I couldn't quite hear over the wind. The dragon's eye fixed on the human, and slowly, impossibly, a low rumble started in its chest. Not distress. Something else. What are you doing? I demanded. Convincing it to help, the human replied. The rumble grew stronger, and I felt heat radiating from the dragon's body. Skolrothi are bioelectric, right? You studied them. You know they generate massive energy, but you probably don't know they can focus it. The chain began to glow brighter, heating from the inside. You're insane, Kelra breathed. If it releases that much energy while chained, it'll kill itself. Only if it releases it all at once, the human countered, sweat now freezing on its forehead despite the dragon's heat. Small bursts. Controlled. Like a heartbeat. It trusts me enough to try. You just met it. No, the human said softly, and something in its voice made my spine tingle. I've known these two for 3 years. Since the day Merchant Lord Vexlar's hunters chained them and left them on 17 different worlds, moving them every few months so nobody could track the pattern. The first chain snapped. The dragon's eye blazed with sudden light, and its head lifted slightly from the snow. The human was already moving to the next chain, hands working with practiced efficiency. You've been following them, I said, pieces clicking together in my mind. You've been hunting the hunters. Somebody had to. The human's jaw was set hard. Your Galactic Council loves to talk about ethical treatment of sentient species, but somehow war beasts don't count. Somehow creatures smart enough to communicate, to feel, to suffer, are just property because they're dangerous. Another chain broke. The smaller dragon stirred now, lifting its head to watch. The human spared it a glance, something almost tender in those cold eyes. Hang on, Ember. Your brother's almost free, then it's your turn. You named them? Kelra asked, incredulous. They told me their names, the human said. You just have to listen right. The third chain resisted harder. The human adjusted the torch, but I could see the strain now. Its hands were shaking, whether from cold or exhaustion I couldn't tell. The storm was getting worse, and even with the dragon's heat, we were all in danger. Why do this? I asked, surprising myself. Why risk everything for 2 beasts that could kill you the moment they're free? The human paused, just for a second, and looked at me. Really looked at me. Because I was chained once, it said quietly. Different kind of chains. Different kind of prison. But I remember what it feels like to be helpless. To be property. To wait for death because nobody cares enough to save you. The chain broke. The dragon called Ember surged upward, and for a terrifying moment, I thought we were dead. 10 meters of freed predator, scales crackling with energy, eyes blazing with fury and pain. but it didn't attack. It lowered its massive head to the human, who pressed both hands against its snout, whispering more words I couldn't hear. The dragon made that sound again, the one from before, but stronger now. Clearer. It was purring. Now the other one. The human said, voice hoarse. Fast. We don't have much time. Time for what? Kelra demanded. As if in answer, lights appeared in the sky. Ships. 3 of them, cutting through the storm with military precision. Vexlar's hunters, the human spat. They must have sensors on the chains. They know we're here. My blood froze for entirely different reasons now. Vexlar was one of the most powerful merchant lords in the sector. Crossing him was suicide. The human worked faster, and Ember moved to help, using its own heat to weaken the chains binding its brother. The larger dragon, the one the human had called Storm, watched the approaching ships with eyes that promised violence. The last chain broke. Storm rose, and the ground shook. Both dragons stood now, weak but free, rage and gratitude warring in their ancient eyes. The human stepped back, swaying slightly, and I realized just how much this had cost them. Can you fly? The human asked the dragons, voice barely above a whisper. Storm's wings unfurled, tattered and frost-damaged, but functional. Embers followed. Good. Then here's the plan. You two get off this moon. Find somewhere warm, somewhere safe. I marked 17 locations in your brother's memory back on Krell 7. Remember? Storm's eyes narrowed, and it made a sound that was clearly a question. No, I'm not coming with you, the human said, and I heard something break in that voice. I've got 3 ships full of hunters about to land, and someone needs to make sure they don't follow you. That's suicide, I shouted over the wind. The human turned to me and smiled that terrible smile again. Only if they catch me. Kelra, your shuttle. 2 kilometers north, right? She nodded, stunned. Take your colleague and run. Now, when those hunters land, you were never here. You saw nothing. Understand. But you, I started. We'll be fine. The human interrupted. Humans are very good at surviving. It's kind of our thing. The ships were descending now. We had seconds. Storm lowered its head one final time, touching the human's chest with its snout. A moment passed between them, something profound and wordless. Then both dragons launched into the sky, their wings catching the wind, carrying them up and away into the storm's embrace. The human watched them go, standing alone in the snow, and for just a moment, I saw something vulnerable in its expression, something that looked like hope. Then it turned to us. Go, please. Kelra grabbed my arm, pulling me away. We ran, stumbling through the snow, glancing back once to see the human standing there, waiting for the hunters, arms spread wide like a challenge. 3 days later, back on our ship, we heard the reports. Vexlar's hunting party had found nothing on that moon. No dragons, no chains, no evidence of anything except some disturbed snow and a set of footprints that disappeared into the frozen wastes. No human, but the dragons were spotted 6 sectors away, flying together toward a system that wasn't on any official map. Free. Kelra asked me once if I thought the human survived. I told her I didn't know. But sometimes, when I look at the stars, I think about chains and the people who break them. And I hope that somewhere out there, that stubborn, reckless human is still walking through storms, still setting prisoners free, still refusing to let the galaxy forget that every life matters. Even the ones with scales and fire. Even the ones that terrify us. Especially those. Because that's what humans do. They see chains, and they can't help themselves. They break them. Every single time. If this story entertained or taught you something, please like and subscribe to our channel. It really helps us grow and bring you more stories like this. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next story.